Hey, Tim, how we going? It's Kaz here from In the Trenches with Kaz. We've got an interesting stream tonight. We just want to make sure that the sound is working perfecto. Okay, g'day Cam. How you going, mate? Let's have a chat tomorrow or the next day when you're free, my friend. Just want to make sure that in March that your goals are still tracking well. Let's have a look here. So it's saying that we've got audio here. Let's see this for 2 seconds.
Other European governments have debated how they want to be involved.
And so it sounds all right so far. Sounds okay. Cam, we're just going to wait for a few more people to get on, mate, and then we'll get to it. Mate, do you know the difference between the two flags above me now? You know, the one on the left we'll be talking about, that was the flag leading up to 1979. Awesome name. It is actually called the Lion and the Sun flag. You know, the other one, the Islamic Republic of Iran. Not quite as much sting, but let's see what we've got here. Subscribers only mode means, team, if you want to be on here tonight and have a discussion, create the scaffolding between what are the two options that might occur in this Iran, Israel, UAE world conflict, pardon me, with Iran, that we're going to give what we believe is a good or terrific outcome and what would be a horrific outcome. We'll be covering that tonight. Hit the subscribe button. That way you can type over there in chat. Right? The other one is tick the like button if you can, because what it means is that this will get spread to other people where if they're thinking, what am I able to think, could think, supposed to think, at least tonight you're seeing people without a dog in the fight that are having a conversation that might actually put some bricks and mortar, some scaffolding around what your mind or world view is. You know, if you don't have one at all, then maybe this will be illuminating. What else we got here? We've got Alan. It's one of my favourite names, Alan. It's my uncle. Never got to meet him. His name was Alan. So God bless you, mate. And if you're one day older than me, I'll refer to you as sir. There you go. I'm not sure if we're going to have a big one tonight or not. You know, there's probably a lot of people watching Married at First Sight. And, yeah, very interesting. Why you watch Married at First Sight? It looks like garbage, but anything that can teach you, educate you on what modern people are like, thinking like, react like, what is appropriate, inappropriate behaviour, then there you go. I wish I'd watched it years earlier. I wouldn't have been such a dickhead myself. Once we've got a few more people on team, we'll whack a couple of videos on for you. They should be clean. They should be good. Sounds good for a chat tomorrow. Awesome, mate. What's the best time for you, Cam? Now, I know you've got new employment. We've got some bad news today. One of our Patreon members twisted her ankle, our military member, at a crucial time before she's about to get summative assessments in the field environment. And we've also got a young fellow that's injured himself that's currently, it's looking bleak. Back injuries and combat cause, go pretty badly, like Israel and Iran kind of badly. But God bless him. He's a good kid, and he's got to stay optimistic. Guys and gals, we're also going to be discussing earlier on, the, what would we call it? The elephant in the room. G'day there, Sammy. How you going, mate? About this female Iranian soccer team. How did they screw the pooch so badly? Talk about FAFO. They're finding out right now, and it's going to be scary. There is no feminist advice that can help them. Could get them in more trouble, but it can't help them. Unfortunately, there mustn't have been a lick of common sense amongst that Iranian regime team, and for an oppressed gender within the Iranian Republic, they've screwed up real bad. And it could cost their lives or that of their actual families. We'll talk about that in a moment. Just waiting for a few more people to get along. I had a good discussion with one of my more special friends before we came on here tonight, just to throw ideas around. She knows who she is. And it was a great chat. And hopefully, what that does is stead you for a good conversation tonight. It is Monday. Monday kind of sucks. There's songs all about it. But let's warm it up with a bit of conversation and let you know that after tonight, you might have a little bit more of an understanding of the way you should be leaning, thinking, etc. Let us do the work. We'll throw it out there. You decide what you want to take, what you think is gumph, and go from there. How are your lives all going? We've got a bunch of people going in to Kapuka on the 16th, which is very interesting. That's going to be a comedy of, what would we say, of friendships, and all the best to them. And all that's about is a sense of humour. And let's go. Dale Potter. Now that man deserves a ranch, and we don't mean the white sauce beside buffalo wings. Dale, I would have loved to have spoken to you about what's going on at the moment, mate, because this kettle's about to boil, I'd imagine. How are things going with things? How about 10:30? Yeah, 10:30 tomorrow should work, Cam. That should work tomorrow. All right. So, as we were saying, the two flags of Iran, the one with the lion and the sun is what it was known as. That went up to 1979 before it turned into an Iranian Republic and took the rights off the females, etc., and took them into a theocracy, and took a lot of their civil rights away. Yep. So what we'd hope to see is the sun and the lion come back with the son of the Reza Shah, and at the moment what we've seen is a new promotion to the supreme leader, a guy called Mojtaba, Khamenei, the son of the Ali Khamenei, or however you'd like to pronounce his name. Now, if we were to have a TAB on how long he's going to last underneath Mossad and US airstrikes, geez, how long do you reckon that's going to last for? His position, his promotion. G'day, Jake. How you going there, legend? Sammy says, Kaz, what do you think of Navy diver? I'm 17 and finishing school this year. You got to remember that Navy diver is amongst the Special Forces fraternity. They're probably not really going to look at 17-year-olds, mate. I'd say go in, get some time up as a seaman, so to speak, and I don't mean something that's been sprayed across a prison floor. And, from there, have an idea of who you are, what you are, and actually see the role rather than just go into the hot water like a crab, and suffer the consequences of your actions. Also, anyone in chat who was a diver or a boatswain's mate, I wish Navy would change their gay as hell bloody rank names. Boatswain's mate, petty officer. I can't stand their rank system. Anyway, they're kicking ass at the moment. Let's whack one of the videos on while we start this up today and see what your thoughts are on different matters. We've got about 3 or 4 subjects tonight, and they should be quite interesting. Is this one? No, not this one. What is this one? Here we go. Wait 2 seconds, team. YouTube screen capture. There we go. Let's kick it on over here. Do you guys have any thoughts at the moment on what do you think is going to happen to the female Iranian team? I think it's going to be bleak. Do you think that they deserve to be able to stay in Australia after making a conscious decision to do something so stupid as go silent during their country's Asian Cup Games national anthem while they're in a warlike setting? I think it's an extremely silly decision. I can't believe they made the decision, and it could ultimately cost them their lives or their family members. Let's have a look what's going on. G'day, how's it going there, Filthy Raffy? The book of Revelation, you reckon it's the end of times, my man? Hey, Kaz, what's your opinion on the Christian belief of the end of times Rapture, some say the world is ending in 2028. All the Christians will be caught up into heaven, then Armageddon kicks off. No, I don't agree with it. You know, I have been to Megiddo Plains, you know, over in Israel. It was beautiful, interesting, supposed to be where the last battle occurs. You haven't missed anything, Simon. What we're going to do is cover tonight the two big options that could occur or outcomes for Iran. The stupid decision made by the female Iranian team that's now going to cost either them or their families lives. You know, and should they be able to stay in Australia, considering that's not how refugee status works? Asylum, yes. Refugee, no. Let's see what they've got to say.
I suppose I should wish you all a very happy International Women's Day.
Wait a second. Wait a second. I couldn't hear it then. Now we'll see if it works.
What does that even mean? Today, we have the Iranian women's football team essentially under house arrest on the Gold Coast. The girls pointedly chose not to sing the Iranian national anthem before their first game in the Asian Women's Cup. But then a commentator on Iranian state TV labelled them traitors who should be dealt with severely on their return to Tehran.
کسی که یک قدمی علیه کشور تو شرایط جنگی برمی‌داره باید شدیدتر باش برخورد کنه. مثل این ماجرای سرود ملی نخوندن تیم فوتبال زنانمون و اون عکسی که منتشر شده اینا که حالا کاری ندارم با اینها باید شدیدتر برخورد کنیم.
Now compare and contrast the Iranian girls' demeanour before their first game with the way they lined up in the next one.
It's happening again. Hey, team, how are we going? Hey, team, how are we going? Can you hear me now, team? Oh, you got me? Okay, I can hear both. Good. Awesome. So we're back on, team. Thanks, Cassie. Thanks for the guys letting me know. Sorry, guys. When it goes out, I don't see it happen. Dale, war is influencing the decision-making. It can't be perfect in real time. They would be encouraged by different people and they're young. Some things are unbeknownst to them. I don't agree with that, Dale. Not on this one. They all know how dangerous it is in Iran for a female to stand up when they don't even have a full political vote to be able to communicate while their country's getting their ass kicked. Someone has made a critical decision, you know, and we'll see the rest of this video in a second, that's going to cost these girls, I believe, potentially their life. Remember, this is also their choice, autonomous decision making. So they may not all decide that they want to stay in Australia and seek asylum and let their families take the brunt. Some of them might want to go home and say, spare my family, I was the one that was silent. And I don't think any finger pointing at anyone in the team is going to make any difference when they've got some cleric looking at them in wartime, and it's about to tell you, and says severe wartime punishment needs to be brought against these girls. It's going to be absolutely horrific, I think, and it's going to be heartbreaking. Let's see if my voice continues here. This will go back just a little bit, and we'll press play.
اینها باید شدیدتر برخورد کنیم.
Hey, team.
Now, compare and contrast the Iranian girls' demeanour before their first game with the way they lined up in the next one. It's amazing how having state TV call for your imprisonment, or worse, changes one's demeanour. And feminists here complain about, the gender pay gap. Victorian Labor MP Sonia Terpstra was all aglow with International Women's Day enthusiasm. She tweeted, "With more women at the decision-making table, better decisions are made."
I categorically disagree with that. I disagree. There's too much emotion. Men communicate without emotion. Most of the time, it's usually about facts. It's usually about outcomes. This is what's going to occur. If people don't like it, there's a hierarchy. Either leave or get promoted and then do something about it. Or in a bar, how much do you want to be right, mate? We can go out in the car park. With the girls, they attack with their voice, and no one hates women more than women do, which is quite sad because there's some very, very intelligent women that unfortunately are getting let down by their sisters. G'day, Jace, how you going? X-Ray Yankee, g'day, mate, how are we? So what's the thoughts, team? What's the thoughts? We'll get rid of that one. We'll close that one down. But I believe the girls are in a lot of danger. What do you think they should do? Do you think they should try and stay in Australia? Or do you think that they should attempt to go home and say, hey, we were wrong. We didn't mean disrespect from it. Do you think anyone back in Iran is actually going to listen to their pleas, plights, or reasons or excuses? Someone has led these girls down their garden path and it's going to come back to bite them real hard. Okay, let's have a look at the back screen we created for tonight. For those that are just turning up, just remember, the one that you can see with the lion on it was the flag that led up to the end of the peaceful times for Iran, and that was known as the lion and the sun flag. The one on the right that's on fire, that looks a little bit more militant, that is for the Islamic Republic of Iran, right? Also remember there's two militaries, in Iran. There's the IRGC, the Islamic Republican Guard CORP, and then they have their actual Islamic Republican Army. The difference between them is the hardliners, right? The IRGC is around 125,000, and the full-time component of the actual Iranian army is 350,000. Now, the people you need to get on your side to overthrow the regime, the country, to go back to the light and the sun, they're going to be the Islamic Republic of Iran regular army, not the IRGC. Think of the IRGC as the Praetorian Guard. They'll take the bribes. They're the ones that are going to do the atrocities. If they stay in Australia, their families will get arrested, and they go home, they'll get arrested. I don't think it's going to be that, Simon. I don't think it's going to be arrested. I think dead. I think they made it pretty clear. X-Ray Yankee, Kaz, good, almost done at Singo. Mate, have you actually done the hardcore yet? Have you done your defence? Let us know. X-Ray Yankee, can we get some thumbs up for him about to complete his ordeal to get, bam, the Skippy badge and be part of the Australian Regular Infantry? Send them back. Yeah, it's a tough one, mate. I think you've got to leave it for a choice because I don't think there's any right answers. That might be my decision. Give them the option to stay, unlike ISIS brides. But if they go, they're going to face the horns. If they stay here, their family's likely to face the horns. There's no right answer. And Soul Stick was sitting on the fence for this one. People may not like it, says Alan, but they should be offered asylum considering Gazans were given asylum. Absolutely true. Yep. Yeah. I've got no problem with giving them asylum. I don't want them to go back to certain ramifications that could end their lives, right? And I think that's a horrible message when we're saying that we're here to help them overthrow their oppressors, for sure. Okay, let's have a look at another video. Oops. Let's have a look at this one. What was this one about? Let's have a quick look at this one. Anyone fill their car up today? How much did you pay a litre? Let us know.
This news breaking in just the past few hours. The new leader of Iran is Mojtaba Khamenei. He is the son of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who died in his compound in Tehran following a US-Israeli strike earlier on in this war. Mojtaba himself said to have been injured in that strike. He was announced by the Assembly of Experts, a clerical body, the highest authority in Iran. But this could very well lead to further escalations in this war. He's likely to follow his father's hardline stance. We know the US President Donald Trump considered this outcome unacceptable. He will see this as the worst possible outcome. It comes as Iran has threatened to attack oil facilities right around the Gulf after multiple oil refineries were struck around Tehran yesterday, exploding into massive fireballs. Today they've become a constant plume of thick, toxic black smoke, now posing a health risk to its residents. An absolute disintegration of the Iranian president's promise not to retaliate on its innocent neighbours. Though there has been strikes on Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Dubai and Iraq. There are now desperate attempts from the likes of Russia and France to de-escalate these strikes on neighbouring countries. We know the military in Iran, the IRGC, has backed in the new leader. We now wait to see what the fallout is.
Okay, so you can pretty well bet $2.19 we see there, $2.13 for Mustang Mac. I paid $2.06 a couple of days ago. So I'd imagine with Mojtaba Khamenei being hailed in by the Assembly of Excellence, that they've just put the biggest target they possibly could on his back. Outside the country, you've got the Reza Shah's son that is ready to come in and help with the revolution against the regime. But whether that happens or not, we'll see. And we're about to talk about the pros and cons of whatever's coming next soon. AWOL Stu says over $2, but it went up 20 cents overnight. Ironically, Indians run our fuel stops here anyway. Yeah, I've got I've seen the cheapest and the most expensive by the Indian petrol stations. The irony is this petrol's already paid for, so it should not be going up to this level of price at all. Now, this is price gouging at its best. This is selling flowers for elevated prices at September 11 or Anzac Day sort of deal. That's what they do. You know, it's disgusting to tell you the truth. You know. So how long do we believe that the new Supreme Leader is going to last? How long is he going to last? What do we reckon? If there was a TAB, where are we? Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to massage all this together. Never claimed to be an expert. Okay, so there's the Lion and Sun flag. You know, we created this for you. It looks pretty. Mr. Buckering, even all, currently running on generator power. The tanks to yet another, thanks to yet another power outage. Yeah, for all the people in Queensland that are getting all the rain, you know, yeah, dude, I saw people, you know, crossing forwards that were not Harrison forwards, that were running pretty goddamn deep. And all I could think to myself was, what if there's some Louis Vuitton handbags swimming around in that water as well? That's pretty scary shit. The price for fuel is set by Singapore. Yeah, but this fuel has been bought ages ago, not recently. G'day, Mr. Buck. I hope all is well with you, sir. Yeah, so do I. Mr. Buckaroony goes a little bit crazy when he's getting the prolonged wets, you know, because the weather, the temperature doesn't necessarily drop, but the mosquitoes definitely breed. And that smell of cane toads on the road up north can be disgusting. Don't forget Valentine's Day. Absolutely. AWOLs do. Absolutely. Jace, you reckon less than 24 hours? Or I reckon 72 hours. 72 hours. Simon Powell, the Raffy, says Khamenei Jr. will be gone by the end of the week. Okay, that's vague, but I agree with him. Buckaroony reckons Israel will get him, not the Yanks. I agree with that too. He's probably getting his coffee made for him right now by someone who is Mossad. We've got Alan. They're already looking for him. I reckon they already know where he is, mate. So let's talk about what I believe the best solution could be and what the worst solution could be and which one I think is more likely. I'll take my spectacles of wisdom off for this. So the best case scenario, we've already said the IRGC has 125,000 Iranian forces in there. Sadly, they're also the children of the citizens of Iran. You know, so there's conflict of interest right there, but they're the ones that carry out the death squads, etc. And then you've got 350,000 regular forces that Iranian Israeli Republic of Iran. Right? Will they fight against each other? We've already seen some come out and make videos saying they're willing to rise up, conduct a coup d'etat on their own government. Should they actually rise up and the people find the courage of the lion to overthrow their government, gain momentum and overthrow it? What I think could be the beauty, and it doesn't mean they're not going to crack some eggs on the way, is they could go back to the sun, the lion and the sun regime, so to speak, with the Reza Shah's son, or whoever they elect by their choice. And what we could see is a new era for Iran, you know, where they're forgiven for the old, where the head is cut off, the hydras for all of the proxy terrorist groups that fall under the umbrella of the Iranian regime, which means they're completely different to any other fight we can see. Okay, there's Boko Haram, there's ISIS, all that sort of stuff in different areas. But these are Iranian-backed proxies that are carrying out terrorism around the world. You know, and maybe that will all stop once the defunding goes. Maybe the recruiting will fall apart and those organisations will dissipate like a fart in a seafood market, you know, and the people actually get the leadership they want. And then from there they get international backing and they become a powerhouse. And that overflows to the rest of the Islamic world. And what we see is a reformation of Islam, where we see the fighting between the Shia and the Shiites, Shia, Sunni and Shiites, where that falls away and we start to see people more about peace, you know, and the prosperity of their countries, right? And the evolution, you know, of the Islamic states actually preferring peace. You know, I'd love that. You know, the world would love that. You know, that'd be great. Is that going to happen? I think what's going to happen, and I believe this is all very, very convenient for Israel. That's what I think it is. But I think what's going to happen is that Israel and America cannot do this by themselves, even if they put boots on the ground, to create the spark that wakes up the lion and allows them to win back their country. So what I'm thinking is, from the perspective, and this is the bad news, is maybe they've assumed that the people of Iran have got a capability that they don't have, or a bravery that might be more verbal than physical. And they're asking too much of the people that may have Stockholm syndrome for their own existence and their own captors and oppressors, that it's just not worth my life. We've seen, you know, upwards of 30,000 people, potentially a shitload more now that there's a gone black with internet across Iran. We don't know what's happening with the squads there. would you be able to grab Australians to overthrow even our military at the moment? You know, to have people that are untrained, potentially unfit, incapable, you know, to go and then take over death squads. If you get it wrong, your family's all done. Are you going to be the first one to say, okay, I'm going to make a move on these guys. Let's do it now. Let's start to burn down, you know, our oppressors' capabilities over us in the streets? You know, maybe they've assumed too much of the Iranian people, and we're going to see a lot more dancing, you know, but that's about it. They can't be putting the boots on the ground. We know that the way Iran is fighting now is to try and get the proxies up and fighting again, to create distractions, to cause an economic distress across the entire Western world by choking off the Straits of Hormuz, you know, and not allowing oil to get out, despite the fact they haven't got a navy or an air force anymore. So prices get scalped, go higher. They start blaming their world leaders, you know, and all of these different incidents occur. And what we see is the toppling of the leadership of Iran, including possibly taking out Mojtaba Khamenei. That what we see is a headless snake that still writhes around, and there's chaos in the streets, and it becomes a broken state and a warlord state, you know, and then from there, ultimately, how do you get control of it again? And normally that's when power is the one that prevails, and that's normally done by cruelty. So I think, I don't know what's more likely at the moment. My prayers are out there for the Israeli people under the lion and the sun. You know, I want them to have their peace back. I want them to have options. I want them to have equality, not of outcome, but equality of worth within their communities. And I want their children to be safe in the future. And I want Israel and US eyes to go, okay, we've done enough. You know, the people have got control again. Let's allow them to rebuild their country, not for war, but for sports, for happiness, you know, and cultural. You know, everything they had before 1979 when they lost it all. G'day, Bretty. Whoopie-doo, Women's Day. Yeah. I'm not into that, man. You know, they've already got Mother's Day. You know? They've already got birthdays. They've already got Valentine's Day. You know, they've already taken out cricket. 12 hours, reckons Cameron, he's going to last. Did you see how many people turned out for the leader's funeral? There are a lot of Iranians who support their current government. I don't think there is, Bucko. I don't think there is. I didn't see a single tear in that entire crowd. And remember, they come from a culture where also there's professional or the expectation of mourning, wailing. It doesn't mean they actually give a fuck about anything. Israeli will get him. Yep. Kane, toads pop up under a tyre. Allow make great golf balls if you're bored. Yeah, you're not allowed to do that anymore, are you? They're all mad as hatters, and they think we are nuts. Absolutely. They tried, but got shot. They would fight if there was some trained and armed. Well, there's 93 million of them. But who wants to be the ones that follows the demise of the other 30,000 martyrs, so to speak? Who knows? They're going to need some leadership. They need people on the ground. They need a promise. And when you don't have people on the ground actively standing with you saying, follow me with the burning brand, I'll be the first one through the door, it makes it very hard to pluck the courage from civilians to get the job done. Very hard indeed. Yeah. We've got another video here. Concerned Aussie says, everything we hear is speculation at best, Kaz. The ones dancing here can go back if they choose. Look, I like to see that they're there for the love of their country. I really, really do, to tell you the truth. And I believe it was very inspirational, but it's like giving also sometimes false hope to the ladies of Afghanistan, which gave them false hope, then crushed that into the dirt. And now you never hear the feminists of the Western world saying anything about the poor girls of Afghanistan. You know, it's it's a tough one. In the pyramid of victimhood, you know, the left, it's depending on where they see you as to where they put you and how much respect you get. Now, I understand exactly what Concerned Aussie is saying. Everything we hear is speculation. Totally agree. But what we're doing tonight is just giving two options that can occur. Did they assume that the people would rise up, and now they haven't, and want now America and Israel to do everything, and they sit on their hands and then ultimately become the, what do we say, the creators of what their life turns into because they didn't take that option? Or do they rise up, overthrow their oppressors, the regime, the theocracy, right, and then from there instill someone, and then never feel the oppression again? Who knows? All we're doing is creating the scaffolding, because I'm sure there's a lot of conversations around the water bubbler at work, and around the coffee pot, and that's just so you have some way of looking at it. Let's have a look what else is going on here. This is from apparently a fairly intelligent guy. Let's see what happens. What's he got to say?
For more now on all this, let's bring in Brett Velikovich, former Army Special Ops Intel analyst and a Fox News contributor. Brett, welcome.
What?
Thank you.
What's your assessment of where we are in this military operation against the Iranian regime 1 week in?
Well, regarding the British Prime Minister's statement, I'll start there. I think what the president is really signaling here is a frustration that not just him, but many Americans like myself share, that the United States often does the heavy lifting in global security while our allies debate, delay, and then arrive when the outcome is already clear. Here's the facts. The British government initially hesitated to allow U.S. forces to use certain bases to stage out of and stayed out of the early stages of this operation. Only later did they begin preparing their assets. So Trump's message was essentially, if you want to be a real ally, you show up at the beginning, not when victory's already on the horizon. And the bottom line is this: alliances only work when they move together. If the United States is confronting a terrorist regime that has spent decades chanting death to America, arming militias across the region, toying with nuclear Armageddon, the expectation in Washington is that our close allies will stand shoulder to shoulder from the very start. And his message may be blunt, but I think it reflects a broader sentiment that the era of America carrying the entire burden alone is coming to an end. We need spectators in battle. We don't need spectators in battle. We need partners.
Fair enough. Do you expect after the phone call today that there may be some swift action by the Brits to try to clean this up a bit?
Well, I hope so. I mean, our brave military, Israel, we've been striking Iranian military targets, military infrastructure, drone factories, and leadership networks at an unprecedented pace. The goal is clear: dismantle the regime's ability to threaten the region with drones, missiles, proxy militias. And that's the difference between symbolic support and real operational leadership. We're conducting these.
I think that's very true. I think for so many years, including the multiple trips I've been on, especially with the United Nations, that we talk a big game, but we don't actually go in there and make change, based on what's right and what's wrong, not just what's legal. I see you down there, legals. I'll be covering off for you in a sec with the OSB. If you study history, guys, the importance of this is you've got to remember there was a country that used to say death to Rome all the time. We must defeat Rome. Rome must fall. What was the country that said that? And who was the leader? Who's going to be the first one to get that in comments? Because that's exactly what's been happening here. Iran has been saying death to America for decades, attacking American bases, and civilian targets, for decades. They are behind the attacks on October 7, and everything that happened in Gaza. They're behind the attacks in Hezbollah. They're behind the Houthi rebels that are attacking in the near the Suez Canal, and down through the Straits of Hormuz. This is not an innocent bunch of people that are just getting bullied, by the Western forces. They've been begging for the destruction of US, and if they could do it, they absolutely would, and they were building up war stocks to do just that. G'day, Kaz. How's it going, mate? How you been? Bretty, I've been good, mate. I've been good. No complaints. Concerned Aussie's doing fantastic too by the look of it. Well done. We've got Legal Eagles saying, hey, Kaz, I passed my OSB. That's an officer selection board team. For legal officer. So this is right up your alley, so to speak. You know, you've got your PFA, is practice fitness assessment upcoming and can't wait to smash. Been watching for a while. Thanks for the tips along the way. Legal Eagles, I'd love to have a conversation with you one day and see what you think about all this sort of stuff. You know, because I've been under the military umbrella, you know, for decades of my life too. Simon Powell says, g'day, Brady, how you doing, mate? Yep. And Simon Powell says, Gaul, asterisk, said it. No, it wasn't Gaul. I'll tell you now, it was an empire that was destroyed, absolutely destroyed, bricks separated. And they're from Africa. Who was it? You know, you've all heard of them. I'll give you a hint. They had elephants. And they kept calling for the death of Rome until they lost that fight and they were exterminated. Brady says, good, Simon, hoping we're almost past this humidity period. Brady, down here, you know, Simon doesn't know about humidity. He's in beautiful Port Macquarie. Those sea breezes. It's awful. Simon, you're in a beach town. You've got nothing to complain about. So we're talking about Carthage, team. Carthage, you might have heard of Hannibal Barca. No. It was the Carthaginians with the circular harbour. Absolutely amazing. And they made the mistake, just like Iran did, of having a ship that washed up, and the Romans weren't known as a maritime superpower, but what they did is they actually took the ship that the Carthaginians were excellent at. They were a naval empire, and they owned all the Mediterranean. And basically what happened was they numbered their ships just like they were IKEA furniture. So the Romans took it apart, reverse engineered it, and then made a bigger fleet and then kept attacking them until they started actually beating them at their own game. And the Carthaginians always used mercenaries. And when they attacked Rome, they overstepped it, and for nearly 13 years, Hannibal Barca, although he was highly successful and he roamed around, the Romans knew, stick clear of him, he'll run out of steam, and he did. He did beat some really big armies, and some consular armies, you know. But that's what happened to him. So what's happening at the moment? Now, some of the drones that have been captured that didn't go up, that didn't blow up on detonation on their targets, they got repurposed, remade for a fraction of the cost of American arsenal, and then used back against Iranians. Righto? That's what they did in the video we did the other day, and set 12 of them for them so that they used expensive ground-air defences against what they didn't realise was their own drones, you know, which cost bugger all, you know, but absolutely sapped, you know, the best rockets that they had for intercepting. So we're seeing some history repeating itself, really. Jazz says, hey, Kaz, I thought in the Middle East culture they only bet on the winning horse. The population will sit back, do nothing till the outcome is assured, then they will know who to back. Probably right, mate. You probably are right there. And that's why the momentum has to be there, but it can't be boots on the ground. And Donald Trump needs to keep letting them know, we will not be putting boots on the ground. If you do not rise up now, then the carnage, the backlash that is going to happen to the Iranian people will be because you chose to do nothing. And that will be a tragedy of epic proportions. So all we can do is really see, you know, and hopefully they do rise up. And hopefully the IRGC also says, yep, you know, I get it. The Praetorian Guard, you know, we're going to side with the people. Coup d'etat, who do you want to be in charge? Let's have the regime change. What does it mean to us? And that used to be something that was quite common with the Praetorian Guard as well. If you bribe us enough, we'll overthrow our own regimes. It's been away quite a while, Kaz. Your sound audio seems much better. Mate, I've been having a lot of problem recently with the audio, mate, and some of these things help themselves. You know, sometimes new problems arise. What you can't see is there's a computer on this side that's got big smash marks in it where I hit it with a tripod one day when it was stuffing up. So I'm trying to do everything off one screen, which is hard. Alan, the resolve of the Iranian team is very loud. It says a lot about the people's dire situation, the resolve of the Iranian team. Which one's that, mate, Alan? The Iranian team, do you mean the female team, or do you mean the partisan fighters on the ground? The CIA operators will be working overtime in Iran now. Absolutely. And I believe there's special forces there too, Simon. And remember, this is their authority to do this comes on the war on terror. So don't compare it to two countries that are going hell for leather against each other. You know, this is because of their previous attacks on USA and partners, you know, plus the fact that the people of Iran screamed out to America, can you help us? Can you save us? Can you choose more than words? And what the UN is doing, what England has done, what Europe has done, can you come and actually do something? You know, yeah. So they're doing that, and they're doing it against a terrorist regime. So as far as I'm concerned, it's all legit. Alan, the female team, I think they're exceptionally stupid, that team. I don't think they've achieved anything. I think it's absolutely going to backfire on them. Now they've put their families in danger, themselves in danger, and they may even lose their lives over it, made it an absolute, what would you say, an absolute target, you know, for the Iranian regime as soon as Mojtaba gets in, which is basically now, to say when these girls go home, they're going to the public square and there's nothing anyone can do to save them, and no one will try to save them. You know, they've embarrassed Iran while they're at war in, you know, a foreign nation that is not Islamic. You know, it's going to be a sad day for those girls, I believe. And if they don't go home, they'll probably go after their family. I'll tell you something else. I know what I'm talking about with this. You know, when I was in the Middle East, I had Colombian soldiers working for me, right? And there was a Colombian soldier who was always smiling, who was always happy. And there was one day where the happiness was gone, his shoulders were dropped, he looked upset all the time, but wasn't saying anything. And so I ended up asking, what is the story with that young fella? Why is he acting this way? And one of the traductores, the translators, come and took me aside and says, Kaz, can I tell you a story, but you're not allowed to take it up higher at the moment because it can make things worse? I'm like, of course. What happened? And they said, so what happened is a lot of the Colombian soldiers, to go to the Sinai Peninsula at El Gora in the Middle East to monitor the Camp David Accords, that is the peace between Egypt and Israel, that's where we were stationed, that this soldier, while he was back in Colombia, had actually shot a cartel leader but didn't kill him, had killed his right-hand man but not the cartel leader. So what he'd done, he'd sent his henchmen straight to that Colombian unit and paid the clerks for information, for this guy's family address, for where his whereabouts was, for his phone number, etc. So when he contacted his family and said, hey, Mum, hey, Dad, hey, Papa, you know, they said, I'm sorry, son, you know, there's someone who wants to talk to you. You need to be able to take this call, blah, blah, blah. And the cartel had rang him and then let him know, when you come home to Colombia, you're going to hand yourself over to us. We're going to take you somewhere and we're going to put you down in the worst kind of way. If you don't come back, it'll be your family. If your family tries to run now, we'll get them now anyway. You know, anything other than what we tell you to happen, you know, and everyone gets taken out, everyone. And your mates were the ones that sold you out, just so you know. So I was talking to a dead man walking, to a Colombian soldier, pleasant guy, loved his family, professional man, who was going home to get executed by the cartels. And I can't not see the resemblance in the choice that has to be made between these Iranian girls. Do you let your family take it? What were you thinking? Was it management that said this would be a good idea? Who could have possibly thought this was a good idea? It didn't inspire anyone. All it did is put them in the crosshair, and God bless them. Yeah. I'm like, what's up? Hey, Cliff, how you going, mate? So tonight we're talking about the likely outcomes, the scaffolding for what is likely to happen, good or bad, for the Iranian people. What's the chances of boots on the ground for America? None. None. They know, and everyone knows from their attack on Iraq, it doesn't work. It's a population of 93 million people in catacombs with no town planning, where these people use suicide bombing as a weapon. You won't beat them. You won't beat them. It'll just be another drawn-out Iraq. Australia will not be going there. I don't think we'll ever see forces in an Islamic country again. Strikes, yes. Denial, yes. Key leadership engagement, yes, but I don't think you'll ever see boots on the ground again. Concerned Aussie, Pauline Hanson said she wouldn't have them. Is that the girls? I don't have any malice for them. I really, really feel for them. I just want to know who made the stupid decision to do it. Jennifer G, g'day mate, how you going? Scarecrow with a gun, g'day mate, how's USA going? I took a gamble and guess you were live. It appears that YouTube has finally started to shadow ban you from me as well. I'm losing faith in humanity. The world needs a hard reset. Ed B Jr. 11 Bravo. Good to see you there, my man. Where's Geordie? Afternoon, Kaz. Afternoon, you. How you going, Geordie? Concerned Aussie. Yep. So for those that don't know, the shadow ban that's on our channel, there is channels that can make a video exactly the same as mine pretty much, get 350,000 views, that have only been on YouTube a couple of years. If I do it, I'm lucky to get 670 views. So it's just the way it is. I love helping people every day. I have conversations with people who join the military saying, Kaz, no one is backing me on my play to join the military. Give me a reason, that I'm not being a dick doing this. And then we have a talk for an hour and they go, thank you. And then they ask about different things that you can't find out from recruiting. That their uncle that nearly joined the military once, that tells them not to do it, why he might be wrong. Let's see how Nepal comes out of this situation. Up the uprising last year, they've just held their elections and hoping they don't get another dictatorship. Yeah, I hope so, mate, because I love Nepalese people. I really do. Simon Powell says, g'day, Mr. Ed B. Jr. I hope all is well, sir. Ed B. Jr. is he's a bit of a film star. He was on the he was on World News not long ago, walking along with his suppressed weapon system. He looked the part. We're going to jump out of here in a second, team. But what are your thoughts? Do you think this is going to be a successful mission or unsuccessful? And if you want to write why yes or why no, I'd love to know your thoughts, because what I'm trying to do is create a space where you can talk, rather than speaking to people that may not, either care, think it doesn't affect them, are more upset by paying a few more cents on petrol than what they are for the livelihood and chance of survival for 93 million people. I'm willing to pay more for fuel if it means that we're about to help people on the other side of the world. But I also understand there's a lot of industries that can't afford another $2. Simon Kaz, good afternoon, y'all. Currently getting over a pretty nasty cold. Probably going to see if I can get it checked out. Scarecrow with the gun. We've been going through that over here, mate. Expert ninja. Is there anything less than an expert? Is there unprofessional ninjas? Bizarre. Scarecrow. So Ed B. Jr. Yeah, mate, I end up having the loogie over here. And I'd be vomiting at night, and it was like just stomach acid with these like black cockroach wings. It was disgusting. You know, good to see that you copped it over there as well. We've got the Williams family. Won't troops be sent to protect assets, not fighting? No. No. They are absolutely not welcome. So there's things that happen overseas. They're Williams family, which are vital assets, you know, that can be protected, you know, but none of those are going to be protected by Western troops. You know, that's not their job. Our job is to soften targets. This is all on the Iranian people. If they don't rise up, they're almost saying you deserve what comes your way. This is your chance. You ask for help. For those that are saying that US should have stayed out of it, I've explained to someone before what I believe this is like. You can tell me I'm wrong, I don't mind. This is like the Iranian people have said, USA as the police force, come and help me. I'm being abused, assaulted in my home by a family member. So the family member is the IRGC under the Ayatollah, you know, and he's got uncles that are Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, etc., and the other proxies. They're the uncles and his friends. And America is turned up as the police. And now they're looking at the face of the person that is the victim, and all they're saying is, all you've got to do is say that, yes, you want this person charged. Do you have the courage to say that? And if they turn around and say, oh, no, you got me mixed up, I didn't make that call, you know, I've got Stockholm Syndrome, then there's nothing we can do to help you if you won't help yourself. Unfortunately, how many eggs must be broken? What is going to be the breaking of the horses, the straw that breaks the camel's back, so that someone from leadership can say, now is the time? Because I believe there will be a time. Remember, they don't have Air Force. They don't have a Navy anymore. You know, they don't have leadership anymore. But what they do have is brutality. What I'd hate to see is warlords or current colonels within the IRGC that now become a war band within themselves, you know, and have their best life at the expense of their own people, who they may be able to look at as enemies. Been dealing with it since Thursday. Yeah, I had it for a week, man, that sickness. They're asking them to fight an organised, highly trained, well-equipped army the civilians have no hope against. I believe, Klitz, they're trying to get the Islamic Republican Army to rise up against the IRGC. So we were saying earlier on, there's 125,000 Iranian Republican Guard. There's 350,000 Islamic Republican Army. So if they can get that to say to them, put your guns down, that guy's not going to be the leader, no more of this, right? Like we saw what happened in Gaza. You know, we saw the Palestinian forces started fighting against Hamas. So I think that's what they're trying to do. It has to work, or it's all a waste. Absolutely, absolutely. It's a tragedy. And the USA might need help from our adjus to protect those air assets. That's the last job in the world I'd want to do these days, is air asset protection. You know, you're the first guys that get the metaphorical crossbow bolt in the neck. Where's Geordie? Thanks, mate, for all the talks, all the help through this process, mate. Really appreciate it. Even though they're shadow banning you, don't think us candidates don't appreciate it, mate. And that's why I do it, man. You know, when I have these conversations, it's fantastic. The hardest thing for me in what I do on Patreon is when I get to talk to someone who gets bad news. That's the hardest thing. Are the Kurds still pushing over the border? I believe they are. There's like a media ban that's happening in Iran at the moment, so atrocities would be occurring. But there's not very many Kurds. There's not a lot of them at all. So are they enough to make a difference? I don't know. In little pockets, yep, they might be all it takes. But who knows? time will tell us everything. I said two options: IRGC win and maintain power, or they have a bunch of tribal civil war. Yep. Yeah, it'd be good if the army stands up. The USA need to get his messaging sorted out. So many mixed messages. Absolutely. The Kurds might come in waves. You know, no one likes a good Kurd in a pool. All right, team. God bless the solution for those girls that made the horrific decision to be silent during the Women's World Cup. Sorry, the Asian Cup. And I believe they lost all the games too, you know, which is pretty horrible. Kurds, tiny minority population-wise, yes. Yeah, thank you for that, Simon. We're about to get out of here. Guys, all we can do is bless those that have the courage to save their families and hope for a more peaceful tomorrow and expect that the world is going to feel some pain for a little while. Today on the stock market, it hurt. It hurt. All right, team. Take it easy. Look after your family. And remember, we are so goddamn lucky to be where we are, to live where we are. So make sure you appreciate it. And don't swear a G hat on your own happiness. Yep. All right. Night, everyone. Take it easy. Hopefully the scaffolding's there. Hopefully the lion and the sun flag makes an appearance again. And the casualties are kept low by people having the common sense to hand over, you know, the power to the people that they represent. All right. Scarecrow with the gun. Great to see you, Ed Jr. Be safe, brother. Yep. And blessings to all our troops. Take it easy, guys. Stay safe. That's Kaz from In the Trenches.